Welcome, one and all, to another episode, or look at two episodes of Kamen Rider Revice. It's been a while, hasn't it? It's okay. So if you're wondering why I didn't do episode 9 week of, it's because there really wasn't a lot to say about episode 9, in my personal opinion, because it definitely was part of a two-parter with episode 10, and then we had the yearly superhero time break last week, so there was a week where we didn't have any Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, or Pretty Cure, because that's all tied into the same block of television in Japan. And now we're back this week to talk about episode 9 and 10 of Revice, and the reveal of the, what are we at, fucking 5 Kamen Riders now? I mean, even if you count Revi and Vice as one writer, that's a lot for before 10 episodes. Yeah. So, without further ado, let's get into the episodes in question. Starting with, of course, episode 9. So, episode 9 obviously follows up episode 8 with Ikki getting the reveal of Kagero, and, the stuff going on with Daiji and his literal inner demon that is now decided to become an external demon. So basically, the main thing is Ikki's trying to decide or figure out if he can stop his brother or not, while at the same time, we also have Hiromi, who's determined to stop Daiji or stop Kagero at all costs for Phoenix's reputation, as well as because of, I assume, maybe friendship between him and Daiji. Like, they haven't had a lot of screen time together, but they've been pretty amicable to each other. And he's been concerned about Daiji, so there could be a friendship there, or it could just be that Hiromi really wants to protect his coworkers. And considering the fact they do a dangerous job of fighting demons, even if they are just the cannon fodder to get beaten down in most of the fights so far. We also have Daiji kidnapping 3 people in order to use them, or Kagero, because Daiji's inside of him, in order to use them to create dead men. In this case, the Brachio dead men, which there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff with the Brachio stamp next episode, let me just tell you. And it's interesting because he's able to create 3 different... he creates 3 Brachio dead men, but all to the same Vice stamp. So I guess you can make multiples of the same dead man as long as you still hold the Vice stamp. And another interesting fact is all the Brachio dead men have little different details in them. And it's like, that's kind of interesting. Like, probably wonders if this will get paid off later, where we'll get to see, like, different variations of multiple dead men at once. Just because it sounds like a pretty interesting idea to just leave by the wayside. Although I imagine it's probably only going to be used to create, essentially, just higher tier mooks for the big fight in the episodes. Because I think they might be a bit weaker than normal dead men, although it's never really explicitly said that they're weaker. Anyway, this leads to a big fight where Ikki uses the Mantis genome, uses the Gaim tribute form. I'll talk about that at the very end. I both like it and am disappointed by one specific aspect of that form. One specific aspect that I'll complain about when we get to it, because Gaim is one of my favorite seasons, so this just kind of annoys me on a personal level. Anyway, and the episode ends with a fight between Ikki and Evil, and Ikki doing the finisher rider kick on Evil, and it ends on a giant cliffhanger. You see why I decided not to really do the episode? Because there really wasn't all that much to say, and it was all just lead into next week's episode, or this week's episode. So without further ado, let's get into episode 10. Episode 10, Older and Younger Brother, The Heart That Believes. So, this, obviously, is the follow-up to the episode 9. It ends with, obviously, the ending of last week's, or the previous episode because there was that week break. And, Ikki's doing the rider kick, but basically chickens out when Kagero pulls, I'm just going to say, the ultimate dick move and imitates Daiji while untransformed in order to get Ikki to lower his guard for him to mess on Ikki. And I just was like, dick move! I know you're an evil demon, but dick move, Kagero. Dick move. We're also introduced to, because the episode actually starts off with a kind of meta, weird opening act with Vice, where we learn a new power that Vice has that we didn't know before, where Vice can look into people's minds to read their emotions or see their inner thoughts. And it's a really weird look at this because it's framed. It reminds me, if anyone of you is old enough to remember Jimmy Neutron, like the brain blast part where he would do his once an episode think real hard, and then you just get a zoom in on his brain. It reminds me of that in a weird way, although we go past the outer layer of the brain into the inner workings, it looks like. And it's a really weird random power that I'm pretty sure will probably never be mentioned again, and is just in this episode. Or it might come up if we deal more with this whole devil possession thing, which we still don't know how that actually works, but more stuff for later. We also finally have George explain why he gave Kagero, or Daiji, the driver. Apparently, obviously they were in on him from the beginning, and he gave him the driver, which is the two-side driver, because it has two sides. You get it? Honestly, it's a pretty clever use in this case. It's better than driver. Anyway, he wanted to do it as part of a test as he continues his experiments with Kamen Riders, obviously. Anyway, Phoenix really wants to crack down on Kagero and eliminate the whole Kamen Rider evil situation, while Ikki is still hesitant to actually fight evil. This leads to a big moment when, obviously, in the bathtub, because all the emotional scenes happen in the bathtub, because bathhouse, where Vice tells Ikki that when Ikki was doing the whole begging evil thing, that he dove into evil's head and found Daiji deep buried in there, but not losing his determination to actually fight. And that inspires Ikki to believe in his brother for real this time and head to the fight. Where at the fight, because they found Kagero's hiding spot, where even the dead men themselves are complaining about Kagero not really doing his damn job of, hey, you're supposed to be either fighting sacrifices or eliminating Revice. And they was like, look, if he eliminates Revice, that's all we need him to do, and then we're just done with them. But they don't really care what happens to it. We also have a moment with Sakura and I keep forgetting her name, Ogalera. I forget how to pronounce her name. Or Aguilera, where she goes up to Sakura and tries to give her the Devil's Temptation thing. This obviously is lead up to next week's episode, which I won't talk about because I know some people don't like to watch the previews because they sometimes have massive dumb spoilers in them that probably shouldn't be there in order to drive up hype for the next episode. You look back at Evil's debut episode for me to comment on that and how that probably would have been a better reveal if he wasn't in the previews because he was only in the last 5 minutes. Anyway, this leads to the big fight. Demons doesn't do that great against the Brachio Deadman because he's still using the Brachio 5 stamp on his 3 hostages at this point. They're scumbags, but they're still his hostages. And Ikki comes in and he fights he fights Evil. Doesn't really do that great round 1. Gets his resolve for the round 2 fight. Manages to steal the Brachio Vice Stamp and then use the Zeo tribute form. And manages to do the double rider kick on Evil in order to beat back Kagero and let Daiji come to the surface. From there, Daiji uses the other half of the two-side driver, because the driver can be flipped into two ways, one for the evil blade and one for the live gun, in order to become Kamen Rider Live. And if you can't tell from the naming scheme, both of them are the other backwards. Evil is live backwards and live is evil backwards, which is the naming convention because it's a driver with two sides. Which would be clever if it wasn't so freaking obvious. Anyway, Liv fights the dead men, the Brachio dead men that combine into one Brachio dead man, wins the day, and then we have a nice little family scene of the family getting together. And it's honestly pretty heartwarming, especially after the last 3 episodes. Technically 4. Because he was just in the background doing shit. And so now, we also have mentioned that George has his 10 Vice stamps of his personal collection. So I wonder what reference that will have into things, especially considering the fact that at first it looked like, we'll talk about it in the next section. We're still talking about the episode. And the episode ends with Icky disappearing from another photograph, and only Vice noticing as he disappears from a photograph of what looks to maybe be Sakura's graduation, because she's center frame in it, which signifies that she will be the next character for the character arc starting next episode. So, yeah. We still don't know what the photo thing is about, but it probably is nothing good considering the fact that the last time this happened, Kagero showed the fuck up. So, yeah. So, general thoughts. How did I feel about these 2 episodes? I really liked them. They were pretty good episodes. It was a good culmination of honestly, with episode 8, a trilogy of Kamen Rider Evil episodes. I mean, technically the whole evil stuff started in episode 5, so we've spent 5 episodes on this plot line, and it honestly ended pretty well. We got to a good reveal for Kamen Rider Live. Even if I kind of hate the name Live as a Kamen Rider name. Like, I know the Kamen Rider names are typically just Kamen Rider and then insert random word here, but it still is pretty weak. But hey, we will deal with that when we get to it. But anyway, let's talk about forms real quick, because I want to talk about this. The Gaim form. Generally, I like it. It's a pretty good form. They all do pretty good with the forms. My one complaint with the form, to represent one of my favorite seasons, is the fact that he gets a new weapon in the form of what looks to be like the Sonic Arrow. For those of you who don't remember, in this form, it's called the Kamakiric Arrow. It's a blade bow, which is a very common weapon in Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, basically most Toku stuff. It's a combo weapon. It can be close range, it can be long range, but in Gaim, the Sonic Arrow could also be an arrow. And while he doesn't use the Kamakiric Arrow as an arrow, it only uses the bladed section. And it could just be that they didn't choreograph him using the arrow. It could be that it doesn't have an arrow, so the part of it be called arrow's a lie. I mean, in the profile it says it can fire energy arrows, and I hope it can. If we get to see the Mantis form again, then I hope next time he'll use the arrows. He didn't, and that kind of annoyed me. Although I still do like the form. Also like the fact that Vice's armor in that form looks very orange-like, and I just kind of love that. And the Brachio form, honestly, it's pretty cool. It's an obvious tribute to Zeo. He looks a lot like Zeo 2 in this form, which is honestly pretty cool. And Vice in this form looks really bulky, and I think Vice's look is supposed to be a reference to the Time Machine. For those of you who don't remember, that was the Time Machine in Zio. And if that is supposed to be a reference to the Time Machine, I say that's pretty clever to reference a piece of support equipment that way. It makes me wonder if the Kong Vice Stamp was supposed to be a reference to the Power Dozer from Forze, although I can't confirm anything about that. Since we're already on the topic of these Vice Stamp forms, this George has apparently collected his 10 Vice Stamps, so that could mean whatever. Like, we don't exactly know what that means, because it's only briefly brought up that those are his 10 favorite Vice Stamps, but we don't exactly know what that means. So, yeah, like, we already have the toy scan for... I'm going to for the next super form, which is called Braid Rex. And that's all we know right now, because we only have a toy scan. And that's some kind of egg-based upgrade thing. So, yeah, it's interesting, but we have no idea where this is going to go until the scans come out. Probably later next week. I don't know. Scans typically come out like in the middle of the month. But speaking of suits, let's talk about Live's suit. Live's suit, I'm kind of back and forth on it. Like, a part of me wants it to look at least a little bit more like Evil, because I'm so used to flip-flop stuff having similarities in the designs instead of it being completely different. Like, if Evil's helmet was like more of a somewhat Super Sentai helmet, considering the fact it didn't have the standard pop-out eyes and had a more like graffiti-esque look to it, Liv has a more traditional Kamen Rider suit. Also, when someone mentioned the fact that it's kind of a shame that Liv doesn't have a lot of gold in his suit, he has a lot of white to obviously counterpoint Evil's black, but, you know, yeah, the yellow in his suit could be gold, and that would probably be better. I mean, I already don't see him getting an upgrade, considering the fact that I don't see how he would get an upgrade. I also wonder if he can still use the the Jackal Vice stamp, considering the fact that he kind of stole that. But yeah, suits. Now, other things outside of just suits that I talked about for the past few minutes. George, what the fuck are you planning? Like, obviously, Phoenix is doing something sketchy. They, obviously, George gave the 2-side driver to Kagero / Daiji for some reason, and we know George's only interest is basically to further his being a fanboy of Kamen Rider. I wonder if this is going to end up with, I forget what movie and or show this was, where the main villain's ultimate motivation was just to make his fantasies reality. Like, his comic book fantasies reality. I probably want to say, I'm thinking of 20th Century Boys with, like, the whole Book of Prophecies thing. But I don't know if that's what's going on here. If I am right, and turns out to be one giant Book of Prophecies thing, then I will have made the biggest saving throw of my fucking life in terms of trying to guess where the show's gonna go. For those of you who don't know what I mean, look up 20th Century Boys. It's a pretty good manga. I won't say great, because there are parts of it that might disappoint people, and it might go a little too long for some people, but it's great for me, maybe not great for thee, to put it that way. I just know some people have criticisms, but I still love it. I'm talking about 20th Century Boys when I should be talking about Kamen Rider. I mean, 20th Century Boys does have a lot of Toku references, in particular Ultraman, but that's a different matter altogether. Anyway, so things that I want further explored for the rest of the season. This whole devil possession thing. Is that how the other dead men work? Concerning the fact that they can switch in between their forms. Unlike the other sacrifices that we've seen so far, who were stuck in their demon forms. Since they can switch back and forth using Vice stamps, are they possessed by their demons? And if they are, would Kikro have ended up doing the same thing to Daiji if he didn't get the two-side driver? Next thing I want to look into, this whole creating multiples of a dead man. Like, I would like to see... Like, I know that the dead men themselves want only one sacrifice, but it's interesting to see if they find a situation where they have multiple sacrifices, and we get something similar to the bird Dopant from Double, where it's a group of people that are sharing the same Vice stamp. For those of you who remember Kamen Rider Double. And next thing I would like explored is, well, we're obviously going to explore Sakura a bit more next episode, but they're already giving major hints that Phoenix is being sketchy, and I kind of want that explored a bit. Like, maybe Daiji finds some stuff on Phoenix and is doing secret investigation shit. It's kind of unlikely considering how straightforward of a character he is. But I did ultimately like the whole family coming back together thing. Although I would love an explanation for the whole Icky in the photograph thing, because that's kind of weird. And I would like someone to explain what that means. Hopefully. I mean, it's happened twice in Plain View, so hopefully that won't be a dropped plot point. I can hope. And yeah, another things that don't want to happen. Vice getting another random power. Like, the whole Vice being able to go into people's heads to see their inner thoughts thing. I mean, it led to one bad joke in the beginning and one poignant moment towards the middle of the episode. But I kind of don't want the plot to be solved by Vice getting random powers. Or just discovering he can do new stuff randomly. Like, if Vice explains he's bored all the time and just has been trying out new stuff to see what he can do, that's fine. Have Vice say that. But him just randomly figuring out he can do this just in time for it to be in plot importance feels kind of random. Like episode 5 with them using the T-Rex Vice stamp to basically hack cell phones. That was clever because we already knew that Vice could possess inanimate objects with the Vice stamp back from the bicycle in episode 2. Like that was a discovery that they both made. And yes, the bicycle does come back in episode 10 before anyone mentions it. But this feels like a random ass pull. Not necessarily ass pull, but it does feel like a random power, at least a unfunny shtick at the end of the episode. I waffle back and forth if I like Vice or not. Sometimes he's pretty good and pretty important to the episode and has his moments. Other times he can drag down the plot with unfunny comedy. It's the back and forth of technical side characters. Also, if you count Revi and Vice as two separate writers, which, personally speaking, I don't, we're up to 5 writers so far. A lot of people are saying this is a little fast, considering the fact we're on episode 10. Let that sink in. We're on technically 5 writers and 10 episodes. But to be fair, Demons was tied a lot into the whole Evil situation. Evil is basically folded into Live, and I don't know if they explained it in the show or not, but Evil can only be used by Kagero, and Live can only be used by Daiji. So if Kagero ever comes back, he'll use Evil, although I doubt we'll see Evil ever again unless it's for dramatic plot reasons. Or they find a way to split them into 2 and somehow make a second 2-side driver, which would be cool. Don't get me wrong. If they can plot convenience that into being for an episode to have a fight between Live and Evil, I would be down for that 100%. It would be kind of like the opposite of Revi and Vice, but I still count them as 2 separate. I still count them as the same writer because the Vice doesn't have his own separate power up, which, if Vice does eventually get his own separate power-up that is not a specific weapon, that would also be pretty cool to see. But I also doubt that will happen. And we might be getting a 6th rider from the episode previews, but we'll leave that for episode 11 discussions. We haven't seen the suit, so we might not even get one in that same episode. But yeah, I'll see all of you guys next time. And before we close out, just let me say this. I normally don't do this because I honestly hate trying to do self-promo and stuff, because I think it lowers the video quality a bit. And if I was being truly scummy, I would probably put this at the beginning, and I might start doing that starting next week, or at least a little bit. But the whole like, comment, subscribe kind of deal, if you want to just do whatever, I really don't like saying that, because I feel it lowers the quality of the video, and this video is already low quality as it is. But check out the description for links to various things. I write books. I have some Toku-inspired books that are based on Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, respectively, and they are links to my Amazon authors page in the description below. You can also check out my website, which is linked below, for further details. Or check out my Twitter, where I should hopefully be advertising this shit on Twitter at some point, because I am bad at advertising things, okay? I admit it. Okay, I feel like I've dropped my video quality to a substantial point. And I will see all of you guys next time. Hopefully, if the ad at the end didn't turn you off.